Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of Website Review, which I'll come up with a better name for next time. In this first episode, I'm going to be going over the Epic Game Store website. I'm going to briefly cover it just on a Windows desktop in Chrome, after which I'm going to go over it on my physical iPad, which I'll be screen capturing to show some differences. And from there, I'm going to take a heavy emphasis showing details regarding accessibility, specifically regarding usage with a screen reader. So I'm going to switch over to the live view. Alright, here I am in Chrome. This is the Epic Game Store website. The website opens with a large carousel that goes through a bunch of games that they want to show you. And then there's various rows for holiday sale, events, their free game that they do every day, and things like that. On desktop, this is a pretty good experience. But right here, I'm going to go over the site as a mobile user would over it and to see if I can point out anything interesting. So here I'm in Chrome's phone emulator. This is roughly equivalent to what you would get with an iPhone X or an iPhone X. And I'm going to go over it like this for a few minutes, and then I'm going to hook up my actual physical iPad and go over it as well and see if there's any key differences or other things worth pointing out. So the one thing right off the bat that I never like to see on these kind of sites is an auto-playing video. Specifically on phones where your resources are rather limited, that's not a good thing to do. That's going to use up battery, that's going to use up processing power. Not everybody is using iPhone Xs or Samsung Galaxy S21 Pluses that have huge amounts of resources. There's a lot of people relying on smartphones that cost like $100 or less, or relying on smartphones that are 5+ years old that aren't going to hold up as well against that kind of resource usage. So really, it's better to have the video paused by default with giving the users the option to play it. Unfortunately, that's not the trend that most of these websites use, Steam included. And one more detail I want to point out before moving on to the iPad soon is the specifications table, which can get a little bit cramped depending on the screen that you're using. It really would be better if they could come up with a way for this to be properly responsive, where it has minimum full width and then recommended full width under it. And I have looked at this a little bit, and there's reasons why it isn't responsive, whereas on websites like Steam it is. But I'm going to be getting into that in the accessibility section because it really has more to do with that. So now I'm going to switch over to my physical iPad, which I'll be using through my Mac. All right, and this is a live view of the Epic Game Store website on an iPad. So this isn't using any kind of a phone simulator the way I was using just before. This is the real deal. And on the side, I'm going to open up a dev console showing the iPad. So I have the iPad at the left here, and the code on the right. So I notice one difference maybe. Let me head back to Safari here to compare. Or I'll head back to Windows anyway, because I can't get that to pop up again. Alright, so what I noticed just now is that they show fewer games in the holiday sale and the games with holiday events. On desktop, it's showing 5 for each one, whereas here it's showing 4. And it's interesting that they didn't decide to go with any kind of a carousel or a slider or anything like that. Instead, they chose to simply render fewer of them. Nothing wrong with that, that's just a difference that I noticed. Pause the auto-playing video. So one thing that happens on the iPad that I don't think happens on the simulator at all is that on the game pages sometimes there's white space on the side. This was something I noticed earlier really briefly, but I didn't look too much into why that's happening. I think it has to do with the right button over here. But this is an interesting case because if you were testing just in a web browser, I don't believe that this actually happens. So here I am in Chrome's iPad simulator. And yeah, I cannot make it happen in the simulator. So that's a use case for why you want to test on real hardware and not just rely on simulations. Of course, I don't know the development process of this website. They may have and just missed it, or maybe a recent update caused this. Because it seems like the issue might be happening on the desktop, but it only has a negative effect on a physical device. So let's head back to the iPad and see if I can figure out why this is happening. All right. So first off, will display nunning this whole element do the trick? Yes, so that is actually the issue. Obviously, you can't do that, so let's see if we can just fix it. Okay, so it looks like they're doing some kind of a calculation here where it pushes it negative 50 pixels. And simply getting rid of that is actually enough to make it not happen anymore. So I guess that's the quick fix, is just to get rid of this one line of CSS on that element. But then one would need to figure out why it would be there in the first place. Which, for the case of this live stream, I think I'm going to leave that where it is. But that's a really good use case of why you want to test on a real device like this, and actually go as far as to pull up the web inspector on the physical device and test the code running as it would for your actual users. Because as we saw on the Windows version of this, or the Chrome version anyway, the issue is kind of happening, but it doesn't have a negative effect. So if this is the extent of the testing you did for an iPad, it's understandable how you would miss this. All right, I think in terms of mobile responsiveness, that's about as far as I'm going to go today with this website. So next, I'm going to be looking into overall accessibility, and that's where most of the rest of this stream is going to focus. I'm going to go back to the home page. And there's a Chrome add-on called Wave that's very helpful in analyzing a website for any errors or accessibility issues that there might be. So off the bat, it did find a few. Let's see if these are a really big deal or not. All right, so it looks like we have some images that don't have alt text. And yes, indeed, it looks like these preview images to the carousel here do not have any alt text, which is important for screen reader users, because if you can't physically see the image, you're going to be relying on a screen reader to read off the alt text. So ideally, they would figure out some kind of a way to input some auto-generated alt text based on the game's metadata. And they could fix that issue. Empty buttons. Trying to figure out where those are. Okay, so here's an example. It looks like the wish list buttons here, the heart buttons anyway. Okay, I think the issue here is you're supposed to have some kind of text value inside of the buttons, which can be relevant for screen readers as well. Because me, as a sighted user, I can tell just because it has a little heart icon on it that probably means wishlist. Or at least that I really, really like how the game looks, if nothing else. The reason it's not complaining about this is because it actually says something in it, where it either says play free or learn more, some context for what would happen if you were to click on that or press it. The Add to Wishlist button is missing that. It has like some tooltip that comes up if you hover over it, but that might not show up for every kind of user of this website. So that's where this plugin is complaining about that. And beyond that, it looks like there's a number of contrast errors. Which it seems to dislike all of these 30% off and other percent off buttons. I'm thinking probably the text and the background are too close in terms of contrast. So the background would ideally be darkened to increase the contrast. All right, let's go on to an actual store page here. Let's run that plugin again. Let's turn off all of these things that I'm not looking at right now. All right, so it's complaining about an empty form label on all of these things. Okay, so they're using label for that. So it's complaining about text in the label too. So this is a concept I can demonstrate right now. If you want text to be in an element that would want it for accessibility, but you don't want text to actually show up anywhere, there is a way to do that. I don't have too much of a personal website right now, but the one thing I do have on my personal website is these 3 icons, which stands for email, my LinkedIn profile, my GitHub profile. So obviously, for the design of this, I didn't want it to actually say email and LinkedIn. So what you can do is to add a span inside of it with the text that it would have for context, and some kind of a class that makes it hidden but only for sighted users and not for screen reader users. This CSS is the CSS I came across when searching for this solution online. There's a few different ways that people go about doing this, but it generally seems to hinge around making it go away without using display none or something like that. So it'll still exist, it just won't show up or affect anything. But screen readers will still see it. So this will satisfy the Chrome plugin we're using over there where it wants text inside of things to exist. But you'll still be able to do things like this where it's just a bunch of dots or it's just a few social icons. So if you ever come across an issue like that for accessibility and you would like to fix it without affecting your design, this is a common way that people do that. I've seen websites from very experienced web developers that do this. So that is somewhat of a standard practice. Beyond that, it looks like there's some empty buttons again. I'm going to guess it's the add to wish list buttons. That must be a site-wide issue, which you would fix exactly the same way. And one empty link. Which, again, it looks like you would fix the exact same way, because it's once again complaining about not having any text inside of it. I didn't want to actually click on that. So, all things considered, that's not half bad. I've come across websites that many people use that have far more issues than this. The developers of this site, if they wanted to fix those, could probably fix all of this in literally an afternoon. They could probably fix it within the time that this stream has gone so far. So really the issues are quite minor. Alright, and finally I wanted to go over the website with a screen reader, the way that a non-sighted or a visually impaired user might. For that, I'm going to switch back to my Mac. I'm going to close out the iPad. The reason I'm going to be using my Mac is because Macs come with a built-in functionality called VoiceOver, which is a screen reader that you can use to entirely control your computer, navigate websites, and do pretty much anything you would need to do. It's very in-depth, it's very well made. It's one of the most popular screen readers. There's 3 big screen readers. The most popular one is a commercial piece of software called JAWS, which, as far as I know, works across pretty much everything, but it costs a lot of money. Like, a perpetual license, I think, is upwards of $1,000, so that isn't a piece of software that I can show in this stream. The second most popular one is a piece of software called NVDA, I believe. And that's the most popular one to use on Windows. And VoiceOver comes in 3rd place as being the 3rd most popular one, largely because it only works on Apple devices, where you have it on Macs and you can also use it on iPads and iPhones and things like that. And I think even Apple Watch has some kind of functionality with that. But I'm going to be using VoiceOver on Mac this time. I may check out NVDA in another stream. Also, it looks like my camera has frozen. Which is another thing I'll need to figure out in another stream. I'm going to be disabling my camera for the time being. And in addition to that, because I'm going to be controlling the screen reader through a keyboard, you may have noticed this little overlay that I have here. I'm going to make this brighter so that it's easier to see. And that way you guys can actually see the key commands I'm using.
VoiceOver on System Preferences. Accessibility. Window. Accessibility Features. Table. VoiceOver. Selected. You are currently on a table. To enter this table. Safari. Epic Games Store Vertical Line Official Site. Window. Epic Games Store New line. Link. Terms of service. Privacy policy. Story fund policy. You are currently on a text element.
Actually, before I get into this, I'm going to take a brief 1 or 2 minute break, and then I will be right back. Alright, so in a quick change of plans, I'm actually going to use the Windows one I was talking about, NVDA this time. And I'm going to be using VoiceOver next time to go over that one as well. So in this final section of the stream, I am going to open up NVDA Screen Reader and go through the site that way. So the basic premise of the screen reader is right when you open it, it's going to be reading out basically all of the site content until you actually do something. And right now I'm in the menu and I can press up and down.
Mic/auxiliary.
Sorry about that, I just realized my desktop audio was probably muted. So I'm actually going to
Epic
start over on this page.
Epic Games Store official site. ES.com/store. Menu item heading level 2. Menu item heading level 2 discover. Out of menu banner landmark navigation landmark button link Epic Game. Menu item visited link store.
Right, so as I was saying, right when you open the screen reader, it's going to read out basically everything on the web page to you until you actually do something. And right now I'm in the menu, which one thing I want to point out right now that I literally noticed just with this, the main menu was one of the last things to load onto the page. The screen reader actually focused on the Discover and Browse area first, and I was able to head up to the logo in the top left corner. But because the page was loading slowly for me, the main menu didn't load up front. So that might be something to consider for users that might be having bandwidth troubles at the time being, such as if they're actively live streaming. Anyway, I'm going to continue through the rest of the web page now.
Menu item link news. Menu item link FAQ.
Yeah, and I can move between the individual items by doing the up and down arrow. And I can also do tab if I want to head to the next major elements on the page, like where the main section headers might be, buttons, things like that.
Menu item link help. Menu item link Unreal Engine. Out of menu clickable English. Button account menu. Link get Epic Games. Main landmark store navigation landmark menu item heading level 2 discover. Menu item heading level 2 browse. Out of menu search combo box collapsed has button search, heading level 1 discover. Carousel current item slide graphic. See the best gaming deals on Epic Games Store this holiday 2020. Out of slide current item slide graphic Cyberpunk 2077 available now on Epic Games Store.
So off the top of my head, I could imagine this section might be a little complicated for screen reader users to understand. Because all I was doing was pressing up and down just to go through the site's content. I was on the holiday sale thing at first, until it moved on to the next slide by the time I pressed down again, at which point it was hovering over Cyberpunk.
Out of slide current sales and specials. 'Tis the season for saving. January 7th at 11 a. Out of slide list clickable button Cyberpunk 2077. Out of button clickable button super. Clickable holiday sale button. Clickable Cyberpunk 2077 button. Clickable Rocket League button. Clickable Cyberpunk 2077 button. Clickable holiday sale button. Clickable.
Right, so I'm in Cyberpunk now.
Clickable button Cyberpunk 27. Add to wish list button. Current item Super Meat Boy Forever Holiday Sale Cyberpunk 2077 Rocket League Fortnite Grand Theft Auto 5.
Okay, so I noticed the screen reader was able to see that add to wish list button.
Document.
That's interesting. Let me
Epic
take a
Games
look
Store
at that.
official site document. Select an element in the page to start. Epic Games Store. Cyberpunk. Document. Elements pan. HT. Data page.
That's kind of interesting. I'll need to look into that a little bit more later.
Epic. Out of slot. Clickable. Clickable site. Clickable. Out of button. Clickable. 7. Clickable. Clickable. Store. Current item Super Meat Boy Forever button. Out of link button. Space.
Okay, now that's more what I was expecting to happen, where it'll just say button, which is what you would expect if you don't have the context of having inner text inside of the button. But it looks like that doesn't happen all the time.
Out of button. Out of slide. Current. New. The Kai. Out of visited link by now.
But while using this from a screen reader usability perspective, it's confusing where I can be in the slide, so I can successfully get in the slide, like if I want to learn more details about Cyberpunk.
Out of list current item.
But then
slide
it'll
button.
move to the next slide while I'm interacting with the content inside of it.
Out of slide.
So that
current
definitely
item,
might
slide
pose
button.
some usability issues. If I were to build this, of course I've only looked over it very briefly, but I would probably make it so the slider wouldn't move on if you're tabbed inside of anything that's in the slider content until you reach the very last piece of content, at which case the slider could move on. I might also see if there's any way to add functionality to stop it from going automatically. Like if there could be a setting for that at the top that a screen reader user might see before entering into the element.
List. Clickable holiday. Current item Super Meat Boy Forever Holiday Sale Cyberpunk 20. Clickable holiday sale, 1 of 5. Holiday sale visited link. Clickable visited link holiday sale. Clickable link holiday sale, 3 of 5. Holiday sale.
Alright, so in these sections, with the games listed under holiday sale and games with holiday events and whatnot, it looks like these aren't properly labeled at all.
Clickable link holiday sale, 5 of 5. Holiday sale.
Because all I'm getting is that it's the 5th item in a collection of items, but it gave me no indication that this is actually Watch Dogs Legion.
Clickable visited link holiday sale, 2 of 5. Holiday sale.
So that's definitely something that I think is a bit of a bigger issue. A screen reader user would literally have no idea what's going on right now.
Heading level 3 games with holiday events.
Like, beyond knowing what category it's under.
Clickable link game. Heading level 3. Clickable games with holiday events, 1 of 5. Games
And that
with
there's
holiday
something
events
clickable.
link.
But really, this should have a way of saying that it's the Fortnite item that you're on.
Clickable games with holiday events, 3 of 5. Games with holiday events. Heading level 3 free games. Link view more. Clickable link graphic Jurassic World Evolution. Link free now. Link Jurassic World. Link graphic Jurassic. Link view more. Clickable Jurassic World Evolution graphic free now. Jurassic World Evolution free now. January 7th at 10 a.m. link.
This is a little bit better. I'm going to do it again. I think it's just reading the content inside.
Clickable Jurassic World Evolution graphic free now. Jurassic World Evolution free now. January 7th at 10 a.m. link.
This is better because I would at least know what this is. If I were to click on this, I'd be going to Jurassic World Evolution. The games up top should do that as well.
Clickable new releases, 1 of 5, new releases visited link. Clickable new release, clickable new releases, 3 of 5, new releases visited link.
Alright, let's actually click on one of these and see what's up here. Again, with the auto-playing videos. Because I forgot to point it out, I can actually show this real quickly.
Visibility checkbox not checked controls the visibility of Elgato in the canvas. Checked.
That on my Mac, you'll notice at the top, this web page is using significant energy. Closing it may improve the responsiveness of your Mac. So evidently a lot of these pages, probably especially the pages with some kind of auto-playing content, are going to be using a lot of resources. My MacBook isn't the most powerful computer in the world. It doesn't have a GPU or anything like that. But when it gets to the point where Safari is warning users that a website is using so many resources that they should close the tab to get better performance, that might be something to look into.
Windows
anyway, I'm going to head back to Windows.
Calico Google out of list content info landmark. Search list 1 minute 20 1 minute 18 sec 1 minute 24 sec Calico search combo box collapsed has autocomplete search list progress slider 1 minute 33 seconds of 2 minutes 16 seconds 1 minute 41 seconds pause button play.
Well, at least they have a clearly defined pause button when they do manage to get down that far if they're on a weaker device.
Unmute button. Volume slider 0% volume. Enter full screen button. Play button. Button. Play button. Button. Play button.
And it seems to be focusing over the entirety of this element as a button, but without the context of knowing what kind of button or what it would do.
Previous slide button. Next slide button. Slide 1 of 7 radio button checked 1 of 7. Buy now button. Slide 1. Slide 2 of 7 radio button. Slide 3 of 7 radio button checked 3 of 7.
It's interesting that those are radio buttons. That's an interesting way to design something like this. I mean, I guess it works because you're only ever going to activate one of these at a time.
Next slide button. Out of button D. E. Button next slide. Radio button. Button next. Button list with button. Out of button. Radio button not checked slide 7 of 7. Calico is a casual community, cafe and film, decorations, $11.99, button buy now, button buy now, button. Win Elgato.
Okay, my bad for those watching, I just realized I still had my MacBook up the whole time.
Windows 1440p.
Sorry about that. Basically what you had missed was that the options here are radio buttons,
Slide 7 of 7 radio button checked 7
is interesting,
of 7.
but not necessarily a wrong way to build this, I don't think anyway. And I was also complaining about the fact that there's an auto-playing video.
Slide buy now button. Button buy now.
So now I'm back to the buy now button. and the wish list button. And this is exactly what I was talking about earlier, where the Wave plugin was complaining about not having text within the button. This is exactly why you want that. Because right now, if you go over the Buy Now button,
Heading, button, button Buy Now.
it knows what that is because it can just read the text Buy Now afterwards.
Button.
The wishlist button doesn't have any text inside of it, so it just says button. And I can go back to my own website.
STE. StephenBerliner.me. Content info landmark email link. Link email link LinkedIn link. GitHub link.
Because I actually have the text, even though you don't see it.
Console prompt. Stephen Berliner. Elements panel prop. Stephen Berliner web develop.
Yeah, where you see,
GitHub.
I actually say GitHub right
GitHub.
there with a class that just hides the text from being visible even though it still exists. So when you screen reader over this icon, it'll
Visibility
know what it
hidden.
is.
Heading level button.
And that's exactly what they would do here to fix that issue. So that's like a super duper quick fix. Hopefully they'll get around to doing that at some point.
Heading level 2 about Calico. Developer. Peachy Keen Games. Publisher. Whitethorn Games. Available. 2020. Tags. Open World, Rating. Open World, Casual, Simulation. Rating. Rating.
All right, here's another thing that's very easy to miss, especially if they only test it on certain screen readers. Not every screen reader is going to read out things like dashes in the same way. I believe VoiceOver on Mac would read that out as saying dash, but NVDA on Windows does not. So they could get around this by adding alt text or an ARIA label to explain that this dash means there is no ESRB rating. That's like a super duper easy thing to miss. But again, it's a super duper easy thing to fix. So that would be ideal just to have the most support for the most screen readers that you can.
Platform. Graphic Windows. Platform Windows. Graphic Calico image. Heading level 1. Graphic Calico image. Window. Show less button. Heading left button show left.
It skipped all the way down there. Let me go
button.
back up here.
Heading level P. White available.
Okay, I'm going to pause this video.
List-
This is even lagging out
Calico
my
is a-
computer.
Button but heading level Peachy Keen Games.
And I have a 1070 Ti, so you know if it's lagging out my computer.
Publisher.
And a Core i5 that's overclocked to 5 gigahertz.
Whitethorn available 2020 tags open world casual simulation rating platform window graphic heading level 1 all about Calico. Calico is a day in the life community sim game. Rebuild the town's pace heading the world game. Heading left the player will encounter add them to you follow you every play with along play pet head you, head example, you can button show less. Heading level 2 follow us. List with 5 items link in out of list with 5 items link Instagram link Discord link, Facebook link.
Alright, and these links are better. They're actually saying what the link is. So it looks like either they added this or whatever add-on that they might be using to add social links accounted for this. Every icon link should read out like this, where it reads out what it is. Nothing should ever just say button.
Twitch link. Twitter link. Windows button. Minimum. Recommend OS minimum. Privacy Windows minimum. Recommend minimum. Not in a table cell.
All right, so this was one area where I did actually test around a little bit before starting the stream. This table is problematic for screen readers for a number of reasons. Namely, you can only go left to right, top to bottom, which is not ideal, assuming that I want to know the minimum specs and separate them from what's telling me about the recommended.
OS. Windows 7 OS. Windows 10 processor. Minimum.
It's not going to let me do that. And in NVDA, if you hold Control and Alt, that's supposed to kind of put you in a table navigation mode. So if I do that and press down, I should be able to go straight to OS Windows 7 Plus.
Not in a table cell. Not in a table cell.
But it doesn't seem to think I'm even in a table.
Document. Clickable. Calico document. Select an element in the page
Even
to
though
inspect
it definitely
elements
is.
panel property. Level 17. Menu submenu. Add attribute 1. Code C. 20. Calico document. Code editor edit multi-line selected 2070. Recommended.
Let's see, earlier I was testing with this. Let's see if I still had that code anywhere.
C. Users. Untyped. Less table. Application. Calico Google. Chrome Legacy. Inspect. NVDA. OK.
So I'm going to turn on screen reader for the time being while I quickly get this set up, because I do actually want to show this. Because there is a fix for this table, but it's much easier to show in code. All right, so for brevity, I'm just going to open up a CodePen that I'm going to demonstrate this in real quickly. So here's the HTML that I copied from that. I'm going to format that so it's easier to see. The problem is that, as far as I can tell, they don't have table headers here, which is technically good HTML in the way that an HTML validator isn't going to complain about this. As far as I know, I might be wrong about that, but I don't think it's actually going to complain about this. The issue is that screen readers rely on having table headers to correctly navigate a table.
Minimum. Create OS. Heading level 1. CS. Blank. Document. Recommend minimum.
There we go.
Not in a table cell. Not in a table
All right,
cell.
so you'll notice I'm doing Control and Alt again and down, which should bring me to OS Windows 7 Plus.
Not in a table cell.
But it's complaining I'm not even in a table cell.
1.5 GB available. CSS. Edit. Blank. Create a new pen document. Windows 10. Minimum column 1 minimum. Row 2, row 1 minimum.
And now that these are table headers, NVDA is able to deal with this better.
Row 2, row 1 minimum.
So it's even able to tell me what row I'm in.
Row 2 OS Windows 7 Plus. Row 3 Processor x64 CPU 2 GHz Plus. Row 4 Memory 4 GB RAM. Row 5 Storage 1.5 GB available. Edge of table. Row 1 minimum. Recommended column 2 recommended. Row 2 OS Windows 10. Row 3 Processor x64 Multi-Core CPU, 2GHZ+.
So yeah, that seems to do the trick. So once again, this is an easy fix that's going to make literally a world of difference for screen reader users, is to correctly use a table header for minimum and recommended, because that's really what those are. And obviously, I don't have access to their dev environment. I can't test 100% for sure if that would really work, but that is what did the trick in this isolated environment.
Calico. Banner, menu item link news.
So that was the last major thing I wanted to cover regarding this website. Actually, briefly before I go, I do compare it to the equivalent element that Steam uses. So I'm just going to look up this exact...
New tab Google
I'm going to look
Chrome.
up this game on Steam.
Calico. Google Calico on Steam. Steam Calico Google
Steam
search.
is auto-playing videos, so I'm just going to make sure that it goes to an image there. Okay, there's not two layers.
Address and search
Right,
bar,
let me go
and it has
to-
auto-complete control.
I don't know, Planet Coaster. I think I saw that has what I'm looking for.
Steam Planet Coaster Google search document. Main landmark.
Yeah.
Blank. Unselected. Save 75%
I'm
on
actually
Planet.
going to close the screen because I don't need that anymore right now.
Oh, okay. Saves.
All right, so this is a very similar table, except that it kind of puts the OS, processor, memory on the side instead of being on top, which is a little bit simpler, and I might say that that equals being better in this case, because the HTML for this won't need to have anything nested or side by side. And in general, the simpler a table can be for accessibility, the better, unless you have a reason where it has to be more complicated. But what's interesting about the tables on Steam is they're not tables. They're actually using unordered list items. So this is somewhat similar-ish to if you were to use Bootstrap to build something like this. So they got around this issue by not using a table at all, which on the plus side means that you can navigate these elements how you want, and that should work. That might be a downside if the screen reader might want to see it as a table, but it's not. I may do a review of Steam in a future episode to make a more detailed comparison on if Valve made the right call or not to not make this an actual table, but I mostly just wanted to point out that there's other ways to build this element, and an equally big to even bigger company decided to build their table in a completely different way. So that was the last major thing I wanted to talk about in this stream. Unfortunately, my camera is out of commission right now. Hopefully I'll have that fixed by next week so you guys can actually see me during the outro. But thank you very much for tuning in for those who did, or for those who are watching in the video uploads that I will put up later. Hopefully you learned a lot while going over the site with me, with a screen reader, with accessibility tools. And if you found it interesting, I would really appreciate if you could like and subscribe. Comment what you thought if you have any feedback for what you'd like to see in the next episode. And once again, thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.